You're already stressed because you're convinced that the thing is going to be stressful no matter what it is. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jeff Heilman Project. It's a new year. Here's hoping that you guys had a wonderful Merry Christmas and that you're looking forward to with shades on since it is today, January 3rd. So happy New Year's, everybody. And hopefully, we're praying that you survived well throughout the night through New Year's Eve and have a highlighted look at your year, that it
Uber
would be
is a thing.
prognostically prosperous. But I'm really excited. We sat down and we noodled on what we were going to talk about for the month of January
That
and
means that Jessica spent hours prepping, and I said, "Oh, that sounds good."
came up with a 5-week series. So for the next 4 episodes, we're actually going to be covering the top 4 stresses according to the American Psychological Association that would be associated with the year 2025. So, in wartime, there would have been other things people would have been concerned about. In peacetime, there's things that people are going to be concerned about. The article that I read, Jeff, said, according to recent reports, the top 4 stresses anticipated for 2025 are number 1, financial instability due to the rising cost of living. Number 2, job insecurity related to automation and technological change. 3, political polarization and societal division. And 4, concerns about climate change and its potential impacts. So for the next 4 weeks, we're going to cover how we view that, what you've seen in the area of, for example, financial instability. Let's address financial instability due to the rising cost of living, how we would combat that, how we've been able to survive with 7 kids and a stay-at-home mom situation. And so we're just going to really have fun kind of heading on. We're going to hit those
Yeah, that's
stressors
that's the
head
whole
on.
thing. If we're talking about stuff to this podcast audience, it should be relevant.
Absolutely. And these are the things
These are the
that
things that the world says are the
are
most
on the top
relevant.
concerns for
Yeah.
2025.
Well, I'll ask you. I mean, you have a fairly conservative grocery budget every month, and you have to feed. That's kind of the biggest variable, I think, because rent doesn't change, electricity doesn't change, cell phones don't change, gasoline consumption doesn't really change that much. Credit card debt service doesn't really change. Taxes doesn't really change that much. But groceries is kind of big question mark, right? Where are you going to put the grocery money?
Well, we had, thankfully, my mom, shout out mom, has been she's a buyer planner, and she's always been throughout her whole life, and she's always been the art of negotiating the best deal for the dollar, and raised me in the same way to never pay retail for anything. So even
That's
in
right.
the
I can
even
just see
in the
Pam going, "That's right."
even in the sense of gasoline, there are apps that you can get discounted gas if you belong to certain apps like Rotten Robbie or Loop or something like that. There's Costco for gas. There are also cashback, and I'm totally for if you use a credit card like a debit card and get cashback or gas perks for using it at the gas station. I think that Bank of America offers a 3% cashback or something like that if you apply and are accepted. So, just getting in that mindset of always working to look for, I mean, I have not been able to live paying full price for everything. Like I just don't live in that world, not with 7 kids. And so I'm always looking for, how can what like Safeway Club or Costco wholesale membership or Target has their app, and the red card, which is a debit card, gives you 5% off when you check out. So it's just the
We
mindset
have a
of
son that works at Target, so we're big fans.
not paying retail for anything if you can avoid it. And but that's not to say I love Jack Canfield's book of the 21 successful habits or something like that. And he says rich people pay full price for what they want, and then they cut corners and look to pay for the deals for everything that doesn't matter. So if I wanted a Christian Dior bag from the full retail price, then as a wealthy person, I would go in and I would buy what I want. But I'm going to work to save in areas that don't matter, like toilet paper or, white T-shirts or whatever. Like if it's something that is that is just a general thing, I certainly don't have to pay full retail for a general thing when I would rather have my money going to something else. But so we're going to be talking about these things over the next 4 weeks. And this first week is the introduction episode to stress and what is it? What causes it? Is it possible to live stress free? Jeff, I know that you are in an environment where you have to be cool under pressure, and I know you have a lot of analogies and you've read a lot of books about, like oh man, my mind is blanking. Oh, Sullivan, who landed the plane
Oh,
on
Sully, the
Sully.
pilot. Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't actually read that book, but saw the movie and
yeah.
understand the process behind it.
But just that whole being able to respond under what other people would consider duress or stress. We watched that Hanault, the rock climber, and about his like no
Yeah, how his
fear.
brain just doesn't process fear unless there's life-threatening stuff on the line. It's like it doesn't even blip above
Alex, right, Andrea? I think it's
Alex
Alex Hanault,
Hunold. I think that's right.
and he scaled Half Dome with his fingertips, right?
El
El
Cap.
Capitan with
Yeah,
his fingertips.
free solo. No
So
ropes.
there's definitely stress, and there's stress responders, and there's triggers for stress too. Like we've talked about probably on the podcast about like the cat that jumps on the stove and gets burnt, but then he never goes back to jumping on the stove ever again.
Yeah.
And so we have these triggers. And then I know that you went through the NLP with Tony Robbins talking about those types of stress responses. So, my question to you is, what is stress? What would you define, since it's such a variable?
What is stress? I wasn't prepared for that question. I think stress could be a bunch of different things. When I think of stress, Jeff Bezos gives a great response to that, which is it's like an open loop. It's something that needs to be done. You need to take action on it, but you haven't taken action on it. That creates stress. So open loops, bills that need to be paid that can't be paid. Open loops that a manager leaves. Like one of the things I appreciate about probably the last few managers that I've had and the businesses I've done is they don't leave open loops going into a holiday, going into it's just simple stuff that they do maybe in the morning, but nothing in the afternoon that's going to leave an open loop so that you're out enjoying New Year's or Christmas Eve.
So is stress always negative? Because stress could also be tension. You need a healthy tension to pull the tightrope. You need tension to fly the
I think there's a
airplane.
way. Yeah. It's resistance. It's certainly resistance to resolution. It's something that kind of creates a vacuum of time or a vacuum of attention. But if we didn't have a vacuum, you wouldn't be able to have plane flight, right? It's the actual resistance of the air. If it wasn't for pushing the plane faster than the lift coefficient, you wouldn't be able to fly. So I don't think it's necessarily always bad, but I think most of the time when people think of stress, they think of something acting upon them that they are working, maybe not struggling, but at least working to try to deal with.
And maybe it goes from stress inducing to stressful. And it seems like the pain point, if you will, the tipping point is when something goes from being added stress to now it's become stressful. And stressful would seem to indicate that it is more than one can handle. And now something's gone from just being a stress to now it has become stressful because it's more than I can handle. And so, like, if you have stress, obviously you're in labor and delivery and you're having a baby, there's going to be some stress involved because your body's being stressed. But if it becomes stressful, then now we're at a tipping point to where there's alarms going off and there's things
you
that
went through
it's
that
too much.
with the kids. I remember between our first kid and our second kid, you read some biblical material and biblical study guides by a woman who had a really hard time getting pregnant in the first place and then discovered Jackie Mize supernatural childbirth and was able to go through and have four kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, in her own admission, free from a lot of the traditional stress associated with childbearing, and you were able to take a hold of that and get that down in your spirit, and you
Yeah.
were able to have pain-free,
Yeah.
stress-free childbirth.
Yeah. I wouldn't. I guess that's kind of where we're headed, is that the mindset of, if you're going into something and you've already convinced yourself that it's going to be too much to handle, then you're convincing yourself it's already stressful. Like the thing hasn't even happened yet, and you're already stressed because you're convinced that the thing is going to be stressful no matter what it is. Like, ooh, that 50th birthday party I'm going to throw, it's going to be so stressful. Like, you're already building it up that it's going to be more than you can handle. Not that there's just going to be stress, because it's going to be something you've never done before. It's going to be something that's going to require resistance. You're going to have to get the caterer and so there's stress. But if you're already in the mindset that it's going to be too much for you to handle, now it's gone from just being something that has stress associated with it to
That's right.
stressful.
Well, and there was a longevity study done on, I don't know who did the study. I can't cite the study, but I did read a longevity study done on 3 groups of people with regard to stress. One was a group that felt like their life really wasn't that stressful, and they died early, unfortunately. Then there was a group that had really high stress in their lives and said, stress probably isn't that good for my health. And they died early and had all kinds of problems, heart, lungs, all that stuff, cardiovascular. But this third group of people said of themselves, my life is really stressful, but stress is actually a good thing. They saw stress itself. So it wasn't so much the volume of stress in life, because low stress, die, high stress equals bad, die, but it's high stress equals good. It's how we're interpreting that stress in our lives. And so if there's anybody out there listening to this with regard to stress, if you feel like your life is really stressful and you think or have a narrative in your mind that that stress is really bad, please change either the volume of stress or the meaning of that stress to be that, hey, I can deal with stress because I'm strong. Stress is part of life. It's part of what makes the airplane fly. It's the stress of a deadline is part of why magazines ship on time. It's why deals are closed and contracts are signed on certain dates, and why bills get paid. Like, stress is a facilitator of all of those things. And if we change the lens of how we look at stress and make it to be, hey, this is part of life, it's positive, and I certainly need to manage my stress. I need to manage my cortisol levels and adrenaline and norepinephrine levels in my blood, so that I'm not constantly dealing with unmanageable amounts of stress. It actually can be very pleasant and very helpful in our life.
Yeah, and into the third question that I had presented as we were initially talking was, is it possible to live stress-free? And I think the answer is no, it's absolutely not possible
I
to
don't know
live
how it would
stress-free.
be, like
I
Bowie in a
think,
bubble, maybe,
yeah, I
but
think that everybody's going to have to, if you define stress as tension, and then just recognizing that our mindset is what makes it bearable or unbearable, then you'll recognize that everybody's going to walk with a certain level of stress. I mean, stress keeps gravity, like stress keeps us
yes, it
down to
does.
the earth, and and in doing so, then we recognize that, like what you and I are doing right now, talking on a podcast, hearing our own voices, speaking into microphones, or anytime you and I get up and we do public speaking or presentations, or when I'm preaching behind the pulpit, like that is terrifying to some people. That would be completely out
Super
of their gourd,
stressful
super
to a lot
stressful
of
to a
people.
lot of
Yeah.
people. And yet for us, it's not, there was initially
There
uncomfortable. There
was
was a
it was a little
period.
weird. I think the
It was
podcast was a little
strange.
weird in the
It
beginning,
was
like
weird
2 years
getting
ago.
up in front of people for the first time and hearing your voice echoing through a office building or a sanctuary or in front of people, and how they might view you.
Do you
Like,
remember the first
that's,
time that you spoke at
oh
Jubilee?
yeah. Oh yeah, I remember the first time.
Do
Well,
you?
it's not like cemented into the meaning of what I was doing was more important to why I was doing it, got me over the hump of
Yeah.
the stress. And plus my mindset was that it was not going to, like, I had to convince myself it wasn't going to be uncomfortable, like I would get through it. But again, like, if you're convinced that you could never do that and that would be way too much for you, then now it's become stress filled, and it's no longer something that it's the mindset, whether that tension is something that you feel like you could endure or not. Like, I could never do what Philip Petit did with the walking on the wire across
Oh my goodness sakes.
from the Twin
Man
Towers.
on wire. Can you imagine?
No, I could never imagine.
With a foot that had been cut by a nail with
I can't imagine walking
bleeding.
on a tightrope a foot off the ground, let
Oh
alone
my
from the
gosh.
the Twin Tower. But yet
But
that was
he did
a
it.
moment of peace and clarity, and
Yeah.
was out there for 45 minutes
The
walking
tension on the wire.
walking between.
know,
So
I
it's like,
know.
okay, then stress is it's not that
Oh,
it's mythological and that it
my
doesn't
heart
exist.
just-
It certainly is. It certainly exists. And I remember watching that with Grandma one time, and she was nearly like, don't ever make me watch that. Like, I could tell she was not comfortable. That
I
was not a comfortable
That was
movie
more
for
tension
her.
than I could handle watching a movie in my seat. I destroyed those red vines, man. Just tore those in half.
It's crazy. But so these are so stress is real. I guess that's the point of this episode. Stress is real. There's no way to avoid it, but there are different ways of looking at it, and we're going to attack, or we're going to go face on in the next 4 weeks about the different stresses that are affecting those around the United States. This was a poll for the United States, but I'm sure it's a global thing as well. And we're just going to go right into it, into 2025 and into this month of January, to see what we can do to equip you with the tools necessary to become more confident and hopefully
That
less
is our goal.
stressed.
And if you look at Jessica's books that she's writing, the Build Me Uppies, which are available on our website, Jessica Builds, we're trying to create content that people can be encouraged by. We've been married for 28 and a half years. We've got this big family. We just had a great Christmas. Like, we're full. We have everything we need. We admire things about each other that we don't have. I admire Jessica's attention to detail and her force of will to stay on schedule with things and to ship everything on time. And we're going up. We got a family situation tomorrow that we're going up to San Francisco for lunch with the family. And there's certain things that need to happen in order for us to execute on that and be on time. And it's wonderful to have a partner who is super disciplined, super scheduled, super on time, but also allows for some fun, right? Some flexibility in those things. So flexibility in finances, flexibility in scheduling, and to be able to do just about like ride the wave as best you possibly can and just push yourself to the wall of performance. And then to recoil and to have time with the family and to do all the fun stuff that the kids get to have great memories with as well. It's amazing. It's amazing to have you as a life partner. I was telling you earlier, I feel like one of the luckiest guys on earth because I get to have a great best friend who gives me a lot of latitude and going and doing stuff and doing what I have to do to feed the family. And I feel like you feel like you're lucky too,
Absolutely.
in that, I'm trying to take on the world and solve world hunger for everybody. So anyway,
Absolutely. Well, I hesitate to announce the launch of See You Friday, but I
you can
am
announce
starting.
it. Go for it.
I'm starting a continuation of our podcast on Fridays.
See You Friday.
Which is called See You Friday, and in
An
See You
homage
Friday,
to Friday lunch with
it's-
Grandma.
Yep, Grandma Carol used to always say "See you Friday, see you Friday," and it would be Friday, and she would say "See you Friday," like "See you next Friday." And when we were coming up, what was on my heart was I really wanted to have a spiritual workout for everybody who wanted to tune in and watch. It's not a church service, it's not necessarily a message, but it will be a faith-filled spiritual workout of sorts to offer, and continuing the studying that I've been doing when I do teach at Jubilee. And so I'm going to start broadcasting those on YouTube on Fridays. And so for this Friday, after this episode airs. When does this episode air on the audio?
3rd.
This episode will air audio-wise on Friday the 3rd?
Correct.
Okay, so if you're listening to this as an
It'll be Friday the
audio
3rd.
podcast, today on YouTube should be my first episode, my first service, my first message on YouTube. See you Friday. And you can look at jessicabuilds.com to resource that link to the See You Friday message. And I'm going to talk about stress as it relates to what Jesus had to say about stress in the Bible. So,
Well, and let's get a precursor on that. I mean, we watched Jesus bled through the
Yep.
pores of his skin. That's
Yep.
stressful.
Yep.
And I believe that I think that was symbolic in freeing us up from having to bear the burden of our stress when we can roll it over onto him.
Yeah. So if you're interested in watching those audio listeners, if you're interested in watching me deliver a message on stress and what Jesus had to say about it, tune into YouTube, go to jessicabuilds.com, and there'll be a link there.
One more thing is one of the things we're doing as a church group is writing down the 5 things that we're believing for. And I wouldn't necessarily put you on the spot and say 5 things, but if you want to share one of the 5 things that you're believing for in 2025, now would be a good time.
Well, the thing about the 5 things that you're believing for is that you got to press in, you got to have faith, and you want to put things down on your list that might even scare you. One of those things was 1 million subscribers on YouTube.
1 million. Sure. That
in
sounds
1 year.
amazing.
Hey, how awesome would that be?
That would be amazing.
Hey, I'm believing God for big things, but do you have a thing yet?
I don't think I've written my 5 things down, but I think the number one thing is I just want to spend more time in prayer and meditation.
That's good.
More time in the Word. That's my mind just operates differently when
For sure.
when I'm going through my 3x5 cards. Plus, I got some new typewriter ink. I mean, talk about a total nerd thing, right?
You are a total nerd.
Total nerd thing is I'm all excited because I ordered. A buddy of mine sent me a gift card, and my Pam sent me a gift card for Amazon. We just pile it all together. But from that, I bought new typewriter ribbon for my Olivetti Latera 32 typewriter. And so now I've got it. And now when I'm typing with my typewriter, the ink works because it had just run its course out of the ink. It all dried out. So I wasn't really getting. So now I can do my 3x5 cards so I can put my Bible scriptures on them and then keep them with me in my shirt pocket. So that's kind of my number one thing is getting more word time.
Cards.
Yeah, I was talking about that with Sean earlier. So
we have, like Jeff was saying, our church services on January 12th. So if by the 12th you have thought of your own 5 things that
we would love to hear what your 5 things are.
We'd love to hear and we'll come in agreement with you over those 5 things.
Send good love and prayer.
Hey, I don't know what's more. What's harder to believe for in California, but one of my other things was buy a house. So buy a house, 1 million subscribers. Hey, what's more hard to believe?
If you get 1 million subscribers, buying a house will be easier. That's for sure.
Hey, there you go. So, anyways, thank you for tuning in, you guys. We're so excited that it is 2025, that it's January. We can't wait to walk through the next 4 weeks with you on this topic. And share with your friends. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. Go check out
there's one thing I would say.
Our websites.
The websites are jeffheilman.com, jessicabuilds.com. Any others?
Not yet.
Not yet. We're still working on those. Buildmeuppy.com. Not yet.
Yeah, no.
The one thing that I would say as you go into this new year, I was listening to Joseph Prince talk about this. Faith, there's a scripture that says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. And that hearing is present. It's a present tense. It's hearing and hearing and hearing. When there's goals that on deals that I've worked on or getting this house or the cars I sat and looked at the car that I now drive and have been driving for the last 4 years. I sat and looked at that car thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Thousands and thousands of pictures, constantly comparing pricing. Do I want it from somewhere where they use salt on the roads? Can I get a California car? Like I knew what the color was. I wanted the wheels. I wanted the year, how many miles I was willing to do, what I was willing to pay for it. Like I thought about it and I heard that in my spirit over and over and over and over. And now that's the car that I'm driving. The watch, my grandfather's watch, the Patek Philippe watch, and even the picture that I have of the original Raymond Waddy acrylic painting of my grandparents' house that was turned into a Christmas card that I got in the mail, I don't know, 40 years ago, maybe when I was a kid. I have that painting now. And so we have these images, we have these feelings in our lives. And if you can conjure up the emotion of what it would be like to attain a material goal, basically a be goal, a do goal, or a have goal. Not all goals are have goals, but some of them are. But if there's things you want to do, trips you want to take, a person that you want to be, a skill that you want to have, it's the hearing of it over and over. It's not just setting your New Year's resolutions once. It's setting your New Year's resolution and then breaking it down into a quarter and then breaking it down into a month and then breaking it down into a week and then breaking it down into a sprint and breaking it down into bite-sized pieces so that you can take meaningful action. Then you just put your whole shoulder into the work of doing and thinking and hearing over and over and over, this repetition of rhythm that gets to the point where it just becomes an obsession, just an insanity. If you can't accomplish whatever the thing is, that's faith. That's what moves mountains, in my opinion, and makes things that are impossible become possible. And we want that for all of you. We've had that happen in our lives with money, with children, with family, with housing, with job careers. There's no way I could get a job like the one that I'm doing right now, or the businesses, the consulting. My bill rates are ridiculous compared to, I mean, I'm able to make more now in a day than I used to make in a year. Like a year's worth of income to be made in one day from one event. And it's mind-boggling to think about that, but that's the picture that we held in our mind, and it's just market rate for solving $100 million problems. You're going to get paid millions of dollars for solving $100 million problems. That's just how it works. So it's the hearing over and over and over again, whether it's this podcast or whether you never listen to a word we say other than that piece of it, the faith that you can get what you want, that you can be who you want to be, you can have what you want to have, you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. That faith comes from hearing and hearing by the word.
Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I can't wait to hear more.
Let's hear some more next week.
Have an awesome week, you guys,
See ya.
and see ya next time.
Bye.
Bye.